Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we are going to have a discussion with Siddhant, who is currently an analyst at Bain. He's also my college senior and a very close friend, and I'm really thankful to him for doing this video. We are going to talk about his college life, his experiences in college, and what ultimately led him to consulting and how he got into Bain. It's going to be very useful for you if you're preparing for your placements and are aiming at those big three consulting firms. And otherwise as well, I think there is a lot to learn from this conversation I had with him. Siddhant is a generally very knowledgeable person, and every time I speak with him, I always get to learn something new. So again, Siddhant, if you're watching, thank you for doing this, and let's get into it. Okay, hi Siddhant, it's really nice to have you here. I've already talked a bit about you, but could you just go ahead and formally give your introduction?
Thanks, Shubham, for having me. Hi, guys. As Shubham introduced, my name is Siddhant. I graduated from NSIT last year from their instrumentation and control department. After graduation, I worked in the intellectual property rights sector with this company called Immensely for 6 months, and post that, I've been working with Bain as an analyst. So yeah, that's a short intro.
Right, that sounds good. So let's move on to my first question, which is why don't you go ahead and tell a bit about your college experiences? I know it's difficult to put 4 years of college into a few minutes, but even then, what were your major highlights and your major takeaways from college?
So first year of college was something, very similar to what all of you will experience or will be experiencing. You are basically experiencing a lot of new things. There are so many new opportunities, and that was basically me. I tried to, enroll myself to as many new societies as possible. The idea was to expose myself to things which I haven't done, or basically that I'm not comfortable with. I am somebody who has not, prior to joining college, did not participate in a lot of extracurricular activities, specifically with respect to public speaking or any soft skill related activity. So that was my sort of on my to-do list to get into these kinds of activities. So first year was a lot of multi-directional in the sense that I was trying a lot of different things. So I was a part of the not electronics club, but we have a lab that focuses on analog and digital electronics in collab with Texas Instruments. So I try to get my hands on a little bit of core electronics and instrumentation in my first year, so that to assess that whether that's a field that's feasible to pursue as a career. Gladly I did not pick that. I realized that there's not a lot of scope with respect to things, or basically that does not align with my goals. But then it was a great experience to do all of those things in my first year. Second year was a little bit more focused. I kind of narrowed it down between, I'll keep on pursuing my tech aspirations, basically do a bit of coding because that's what everybody was doing. That was the, sole reason I was doing a lot of these tech related activities or taking all these endeavors within the tech domain. But side by side, I kept my non-tech profile building going on. I try to focus a lot more on the various societies that are there in college, try to take up more responsibility so as to get a little bit, exposure towards more managerial side of things rather than just doing things. And yeah, that was pretty much the highlight of second year. And I also was a part of this amazing, opportunity that our college provides, something called HN1, where a bunch of kids out of the college is selected to go for this conference at Harvard. So I was lucky enough to be selected, and that took a major chunk of my second year's time while preparing for that, and researching for the conference and leveling up my soft skills for the same. Third year was again that's when things started materializing more towards what that question starts coming up, what do you want to do in future. So in the backdrop of those thoughts, I kind of became more cognizant and started preparing more for non-tech. I started participating in more and more case study competitions, ample resources available online with respect to these competitions. You have Dare to Compete, or you have these Facebook groups that keep you notified. But then the ones I participated were mostly with St. Stephen's. They pretty much organize case studies year round, and also there are other colleges colleges in the DU circuit that organize these case studies. So I try to get my hands on as much of these competitions as possible. So that was third year for me. I also interned, and I kind of have had this sort of not like from a career point of view, but as an act for technology and law. And I was lucky enough to get an on-campus internship in this law firm, which was again not exactly technical, but then it was sort of semi-tech, and it was sort of tech consulting in a manner. So getting basically exposure towards prosecution side of things and how you develop applications for patents and related intellectual properties. Fourth year was again like it was not like in terms of time, it passed very quickly. Part of it has to do with the pandemic. So those are like very broadly the highlights of my 4 years.
Wow, that was absolutely amazing. I guess it's sort of a testament to the kind of person you are when you talk about all these different experiences. It makes me feel like it's not just one person who has done those things. It sounds like this work has been cut out for like multiple people. But since you did mention internships, like that is where I want to move on to next. What do you think about internships and how do you think students should approach internships? Like, let's try and think about internships as a tool for you to build your profile, as well as a really nice place to learn some new things. Like, could you talk about that for a few minutes?
That's a really important question. And I think we often do not talk about internship from a learning point of view, but rather than a CV point of view most of the time. So it's really important to have that kind of conversation going on, that, you know, what benefit actually you are getting out of internship. And to be honest, that's how it is. You don't need basically 3, 4, 5, 6 internships to get a good job in, let's say, a top tier company, be it for tech, non-tech, core, anything. It really depends. It firstly depends on you with respect to you converting the job, not your internships. And that again stems from the learning you're having from your internships. So I'm a big believer in terms of, you know, your internships don't really matter unless you're learning anything out of it, and definitely prefer quality over quantity. So going into specifics, in an ideal sense, that you can do like 3 internships prior to your getting an offer in college, specifically for BTech students. And again, that kinds of becomes 2 for students who are not from engineering background and are in a 3-year program or less. So let's say you have 3 opportunities to get into an internship: first year, second year, and third year. You don't have to actually go and do internships all of these time, or in all of these opportunities. I think if you do an internship in, let's say, 2 out of 3 of these, let's say, windows, that should suffice in terms of justifying things on your CV. And it doesn't even matter. Like, a lot of people want to go for summer schools. A lot of people want to do a lot of courses during their summer vacation, because that's when it is possible and it is feasible, and it is completely okay. You don't have to do your internship in your summer vacation only. You can do it side by side as part-time. The idea is in terms of, let's say, making your profile meet the bare minimum, or let's say the acceptable number. It's something you can think of it as, let's say, 2 internships. So in my case, I chose my internships in a manner so that I can strike things off. As I was explaining my journey in my college, that I was in part of a lot of different activities, or let's say different career paths. I was doing core, I was doing tech, I was doing non-tech. I was a confused student. I did not want to lose out on any opportunity. Answer that question, what do you want to do, rather than, answering that question for yourself later point in time, because you have the luxury to experiment right now. At that point, you will be essentially experimenting with your career. So right. There is absolutely no relation between, my second year internship, my third year internship, and finally that, if I compare it to the current job I'm doing, if I look at, let's say, 1-to-1 mapping, but definitely there are experiences in terms of things that help me. So my second year internship was in IGL in their instrumentation and automation department. So as I said, I'm from instrumentation control, and I was interested to know more about what career opportunities are there in the core field. That's the reason I chose IGL rather than going for a, let's say, coding based or a purely non-tech based internship. And as I explained, for my third year internship, I suddenly, developed this fascination towards law and technology and how they interacted. So that's the reason I got interested with interning with this law firm. First year internship, I would have done it in ideal situation, but then I was sort of occupied with this conference in Singapore. And again, as I said, you don't have to necessarily do an internship to justify that period in your CV, you can pretty much do it with anything. Summer school, you can actually show a course in it, and that is good for the companies.
Yeah, I would say I generally agree with you on that point. Even though I was on the other end of it, I did more internships than anything else. I think those could have been easily replaced by doing summer schools or focusing on some projects. In fact, doing that will diversify your profile even more, which I think is generally a good thing for consulting firms. Yes, I think I generally agree with you on that. So I picked up something from your college journey when you were talking about that, and I know this for a fact because I know you personally as well. What is your take on PORs, or positions of responsibility? Do you think that they matter? And if so, in what sort of context do they matter? And how would you advise new students to look at societies and clubs in general?
So statistically, going by the kind of profiles that are there in most of the consulting companies, or let's say comparing the profiles of freshers who join this company from campus or off campus, there is not like a definite trend you can make that, okay, let's say the presidents of every society get shortlisted, or let's say the top POR holders in the college make through the interviews. That's not something that happens. Definitely that gives you an edge in the interview, or let's say the selection round, the CV shortlisting round. But then that nowhere, is the only factor that gets you a convert. So my idea behind society is that you are joining societies that basically complement the skills that you have and the skills that you want to learn, and that is how you should make that choice. Definitely you should be conscious with respect to the kind of balance you are achieving when it comes to societies, academics, and extracurriculars. Let's say if you are in a society because of so much work pressure from society, you're not able to focus on academics. Or let's say if you're able to focus on academics, you will not be able to go out and participate yourself in a lot of these competitions these societies organize. And let's say a person who's not at the senior management of the society, that person will be more exposed to actually participating and learning the skills that the societies are offering. So, you need to really balance all these three aspects out and then make a decision with respect to whether you want to continue in a society or whether you want to enroll in a society. If you are in your first year or second year, you do not need to worry as much about all of these things. Definitely, to first years, my advice would be to explore as much as possible, get yourself immersed in as many societies as possible. Not like the idea is not to get in all societies. The idea is that you are not leaving any stone unturned. Like, for example, you initially thought that you had computer science in class 12th and you want to do coding and you want to do get a coding job. Do not limit yourself to just let's say a technical society. There is no harm in, let's say, getting enrolled in a non-technical society. Maybe you are good at writing, and that's definitely going to help you in your tech job as well. So why not join the college newspaper or college managing societies? So it really depends on what sort of skills you want to grab, and that should be the idea. Grab as many skills as possible. Do not go after PORs.
Okay, I think that's legitimately one of the best advices I have heard. Overall, I think exploring is a good way to look at societies, and I completely agree with you on that. Okay, so this is one of the most important questions that I wanted to ask you. How does one decide that they want to get into consulting? And basically, what was your journey of realization that you wanted to get into consulting, and particularly into Bain? Because I know that you have also been doing the other side of things, which is like the tech side of things, and that you've done some research papers. So what was your journey while deciding that you wanted to get into consulting after college? Also, what is it about consulting that attracts you? Basically, the why consulting question.
So, before answering your question directly, I want to break this myth that a lot of seniors and even faculty members bring. There are three broad buckets: tech, non-tech, core. Even I use these terminologies because it's so much inside your DNA. But then the reality is that there is not a lot of distinction. I'm doing a lot of technical research. I started off with research in semiconductor industry, and I was recalling whatever I learned in my first year while being in the analog and digital electronics lab. I utilized my knowledge about patent industry in my second case while working at Bain. So the idea is that consulting is not strictly non-tech. If you are a tech person, if you have a technical, background, consulting might be the field for you. So now coming to the answer to the question, how consulting or why consulting? So for me, I can answer for myself. I don't know what clicks for other people. I know a lot of people just go after consulting because they're not able to exactly narrow down which field they want to go, and consulting seems to be like a generalist field, which is in some manner true, and in other manner it's not. I like to research about things. I like to exactly understand what are the bottlenecks with respect to executing certain thing, or what problems are we facing here, or what improvement we can do with respect to this. So all of this research comes under sort of consulting. So for me, and specifically when I started participating in a lot of these case study competition, and I started getting flavor of what kind of cases will be brought in front of us, because these competitions pick their problem statements from previous cases or disclosed cases of these big companies. So while I was participating in all of these, I started liking the kind of work we were doing with the team, the researching aspect, coming up with the hypotheses, now looking at innovative solution, and debating out the feasibility of those solutions. So the entire process of going through A, B, C, D, and the entire life cycle of a case, that was something that really appealed to me, and that was the main reason I got into consulting. I was still, again, going back to the point regarding tech, non-tech, I don't really call it a non-tech job in any sense, because I started my first job was with the Bain, and it was a purely technical consulting firm. I've seen a lot of teams at Bain as well are working, let's say, into super advanced AI and ML practices. So there you have it. It depends totally, on your skill, and if you think that you like doing the kind of work they are doing, that I think consulting might be the answer for you.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I particularly really like the part where you talked about not putting your career prospects into fixed buckets like core, non-tech, and tech. Yeah, I really like that answer. Let's move on to the next one. So since we're already on the topic of consulting and big three consulting firms, what I wanted to understand from you is how do you prepare for these consulting roles? I know for a fact that most of those interviews will have guesstimates as well as case interviews for students as well as early career professionals to select them into analyst roles. But yeah, exactly how does one prepare for them, and what was the material that you used to prepare for them?
So with respect to preparation part, I can't give you a list of things you can do, or this is the syllabus you go about, you cover this and you lace in the interview or whatever rounds they're having. For me, what my preparation I can't really put, let's say, I can't mark my preparation time on the calendar, because as I said, I was participating in a lot of case study competitions. I was constantly reading about what's happening in the business world, how various problems these companies are, whatever information I could find, are solving, what solutions are they adopting, and basically having those kinds of conversations with my peers who are also preparing for these companies. So that kind of helped me a lot more than, let's say, doing bunch of books. If I talk about my preparation strategy, you can, let's say, if you're starting with your preparation, what you can start off with is by doing all of these basic material, let's say in terms of case in point or case interviews crack. These are the, let's say, the Bible when it comes to preparing for your case interviews. And they also and case interviews crack also has a bunch of guesstimates that are also quite good. You can also refer to that for your guesstimates. So the idea is that you firstly familiarize yourself with these basic material. Try to firstly go and read these case study books, and essentially have mock interviews with your peers. And basically afterwards, what you can do is you can actually start going about reading more unconventional material online. There are a lot of groups. There is actually a group on LinkedIn. I found something called Case Over Coffee, I think, or something like that. It's basically a cross-region group where you'll find some people preparing for consulting firms, not just from India but across India as well. So you can connect with these people, you can talk to them, and they definitely will expose you to a lot of different materials when it comes to preparation. So the idea is that I can give you the list of things I did, and it may be possible you are able to cover all of that, and some of you may not be able to cover all of that. The key thing is that you try to chart your own course. You see how much preparation you need for these things, because it's not the case that they will pick a case from this book and will give you, and that's gonna be your case interview. That's not what happens for most people during the interview. So why not get that experience every time you practice? So every time when, let's say, you're having a mock interview, you try to expose yourself to material what other people are doing. So I think that helps more when it comes to case studies or guesstimates.
Yeah, just like always, that again makes a lot of sense. I think you were talking about Pawan Satyaraju's Cases Over Coffee on LinkedIn. I will link that down in the description for anyone who wants to check that out. Okay, now let's come to another important question about resumes. Knowing what you know now and going through 4 years of college, how would you recommend a student to build up their resume? What should be the main points that should be there? And from a consultant's point of view, if not an ideal, what would be a close to ideal resume for consulting roles?
There are two parts to this question. Firstly, try to very thoroughly understand what the company's role and requirement is. A lot of the time, we try to see how that company, how we can make ourselves fit for the company. And a lot of the times, and then that we are trying to make our profile look like a Frankenstein profile, where we are trying to include a bunch of stuff because we feel that is important for the company and they will favorably look upon it. That's half right strategy, but you should also look at how that company fits for you. So if you look at, let's say, the problem from both the side of the if you look at this equation from both sides, that's, I think you'll be able to better solve it. So the idea is to firstly understand that role very properly. Like, I don't think so I got a correct answer to what sort of work will be here at Bain. I spoke to a bunch of seniors that, who are working in this company, or let's say seniors who got placed in this company, and just to get an idea, my question was always, how do I prepare for this? How do I, for what they're going to ask in the interview, what cases should I prepare for? And I'm not going to say that's the wrong questions you should ask, but then they should not be the only questions you're asking. You should also put considerable effort in terms of understanding what the role is, what the work is going to be like, so that you are able to better present yourself as, let's say, the candidate who's going to sit for that company. So understanding, let's say, if you are a fresher and probably you'll be sitting for an analyst profile, you need to understand what exactly the work of an analyst encompasses. What if, let's say, in different capabilities, or if in different center of excellences that are being offered by the company, what fits best for you? What actually different work streams entail. So having knowledge of this question helps you frame your answers in a manner that, let's say, the interviewer would look favorably upon. So just talking about the psychology of the interviewer, that person is going to take, let's say, 10 to 15 interviews, and people who have definitely cleared the shortlist are people who have a very similar profile. So a lot of it will be left on luck, or let's say structuring the answer. You may all have very similar profile, or let's say you all are equally good and capable to get selected, and you, just because of that uncertainty aspect, you do not. So try to bucket all your things. You look at, let's say, a template that's given by the company. Usually in most consulting interviews, they give you a template, and if they do not, you can actually look up. There are a lot of standard industry template for consulting that are available. You will definitely find one for Bain or BCG or McKinsey. You can look at it. The idea is to get an understanding of what buckets of things they are looking at. So they effectively want people who excel in each of these buckets. They're not just looking for people who have, let's say, amazing number of internships but do not have really any academic projects, because that's something they look at, and that maybe for, let's say, a non-tech profile may not be relevant, but they're looking for a person who has a more holistic profile. So try to see from there and try to bucket your experiences and your profile per their categorization. So I think that's one tip. And the other tip is, as just going back with respect to the profile thing, I can't tell you what strategization I did with respect to things, because that's more applicable to me, but then I can definitely tell you there was a lot of thinking I did with respect to, while I applied again for Bain, a working professional, there was a lot of thinking I did. There were multiple iterations of resume editing that were happening, just to make sure that the message or the storylining that I'm doing with my resume is perfect.
Okay, I think to summarize what Siddhant said over here was two main things. The first is that there should be a balance. There should not be too much of one thing and too little of another thing, and this particularly applies to consulting firms. Even though in some cases, yes, consulting firms are looking for people who have specialized in their own domains, but even then, it is generally a good idea to explore other areas as well. And the second is that your resume should be an accurate description of who you are. If you are lying about who you are, it's very easy for the interviewer to point that out and to find that out very easily. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this is another thing that a lot of people want to know is you've been working for Bain for more than 3 months now. How has your experience been?
It's actually pretty amazing. Definitely, it's not something that we expect because of work from home being mandated. But one thing I can say for sure is that the learning on the learning front, it's pretty great. You get to meet a lot of people who are very helpful, and Bain takes specific steps, or they give due regard to promote a very healthy kind of work culture. So people are always there for you to help you out with things. You are constantly learning and exposed to new opportunities there. So on that front, definitely the work has been going great. As you said, 3 months is not that much amount of time specifically in work from home to assess all of the aspects for the office. But then I'm really looking forward to starting and experiencing all of those things. But so far, it's been great.
I'm really glad it's working out for you. I mean, you're right. I wish that these joinings were offline as well and we wouldn't have to do work from home. But then again, we can't really do anything about that. But yeah, all in all, I think it's a net positive for you and I'm really happy about that as well. Okay, so with that, we are at the last question. What are your closing remarks / like your final advice for students who are preparing to get into consulting?
It's not going to be something very different from what I covered. I basically would want to put all of this in, let's say, three advices. Firstly is understanding the role and the company and the profile and everything before you start preparing for it, before you actually are in your placement or your internship season. As soon as possible, whenever you are exposed to the question that should I consider consulting, that's when the next step should be that you talk to people and get a clear understanding of what kind of work it includes. So that's not just going to help you to understand whether it's the right fit for you or not, but also will help you to take steps or choose activities which better align with that role. Let's say if you are going for a company that is, let's say, more in the consulting vertical, it's more finance heavy. If you do not know what kind of work it does and what kind of day-to-day activities will be there as a part of your job profile, you will not be able to accurately prepare for it, and definitely that's going to impact your interview, and if not your interview, then your later journey as a working professional. So that should be your first preliminary step before jumping with the preparation for any company. The next part is that try to have not a plan B, but then have a more holistic profile. It's, as I said, consulting in some sense it's being a generalist, specifically when you're starting as a fresher without any work ex. They see you as a generalist. But then, let's say you do not get in the company that you would want to in consulting, and you are not getting a lot of good offers because there are a lot of good companies in consulting, but at the same time, let's say if we talk about the job market in India or the number of good college students who are competing for the same set of profiles, the competition is tough. So I'd say that having, let's say, another skill or another career path for you as a plan B is quite smart to have, because it's not going to help you with respect to having a fallback option, but at the same time showing diversity in your profile. You don't want your profile to look exactly same as people whom with you are competing with, right? So you are actually targeting two problems with the same, let's say, endeavor. Third will be with respect to preparation. Try to start your preparation. Your preparation should not be like the preparation for your exam. You are preparing, let's say, 2 mahina, 3 mahina pehle because placement season, internship season aa raha hai. But you actually you not focus on the breadth of things you want to do, but the depth of things you cover. So try to focus on developing a caliber towards solving cases rather than covering the number of books or number of cases. So these are the three advices I have for students who are preparing.
Wow, just like a consultant, I think that was a very BC answer. You broke it down into 3 different things and they were like exclusive of each other. So yeah, I think we've ended on a very topical note. And obviously that was a great answer as well. So with that, we are at the end of the video. Again, thank you, Siddhant, so much for doing this. And
Thank you for having
with
me.
that, I think this was very, very useful for anyone who's preparing to get into consulting and who's preparing for placements, but even for first or second year students who are building their profile. And I think it was very useful for them because I think they got insight into how they should tackle all the obstacles that they face in college. If any of you would like to reach out to Siddhant, I will put his socials down in the description. You can reach out to him. And yeah, with that, we're at the end of the video. If you have not subscribed yet, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. And like I mentioned in the previous videos, there's going to be one video every weekend, and I'm trying to make that a thing as much as possible. With that, until next time, bye-bye.